A Conversation with Facebook, the Social TV Marathon. Please welcome our moderator, VP of U.S. Internet for Nomura Securities International, Brian Nowak.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. So today I'm very happy. My name is Brian Nowak. I'm an internet analyst at Nomura covering internet stocks, online advertising, e-commerce, and online travel. Today we are focusing on online advertising. Very happy to have Howard Stein with us today. We are here to talk about Facebook and the social TV marathon. Before we get started, though, I have quick disclosures I have to say. For more information and important disclosures, please see our most recent published research reports on the companies discussed during this presentation. With that, I think Howard has a couple slides he wanted to show. So Howard, you want to talk to the first slide?
Sure. Where is it? There. Oh,
there we go.
Look at that. That's the second slide. So this is a slightly provocative statement. What if TV becomes a social web second screen? And I think the slide is intended to spark a conversation.
Yep.
I don't know if you were at CES this year, but Sean, I can never pronounce his last name, Debravac, yep. Who's their chief researcher, cited 4 trends. The last trend was the change of flow of storytelling and where content is emanating from and how people are engaging with content. And so I don't think that the slide is to say that how people spend time or will dominate television. I just think that, or we think at Facebook, that the way people discover content and the way people share content, there's a shift. Mm-hmm. And that shift is through people's phones, tablets, and their second screen. Yep. So if you think about what the opportunity is for content producers and television networks to actually create content that is more engaging, more social, to get people to discover and share, mm-hmm. and therefore make people who are fans of your content, drive that awareness to other friends to ultimately tune in.
Yep, no, that makes sense. It's a provocative statement in particular, given this audience. I guess we can start with that then. What trends are you seeing that kind of reinforce this idea of TV becoming secondary to social? Are there any tangible examples of kind of what you're seeing in the data that shows that?
Well, I just think that overall engagement is up. The most powerful part of the Facebook experience is newsfeed. Mm-hmm. That's where people spend 40% of their time, and we see over time that regardless of whether or not it's a picture of a friend or content from a cookie manufacturer or a television show, people are engaging with content around the people, places, and things that they like. Yep. And so as more things enter the graph and as more people start to share, we're seeing that there's a shift on how people discover, and mm-hmm. that's happening we think predominantly on Facebook.
And who's doing this? What are the demos and kind of the age groups of the people that you're seeing doing this coincident viewing? Is it college kids? Is it stay-at-home wives? Who's doing it?
Yeah, I think the IAB did a study. I like to say that 30% of all statistics are false, so take this with, right. As you want. But they did a study mid last year where I think people that own 4 screens in the home, so that's tablet, television, phone, and computer, between 18 and 44, 74% of them are engaging while a show. And so we have scale. So I think that while we don't have specific data around like who, right. I think that when you have scale, it maps to any survey or any other kind of information that's out there that you could discover. So 18 to 44-year-olds are engaging highly while they're watching. Massive
group of people.
Yeah.
Massive group of people. And what types of content are you seeing the biggest spikes? Is it during sports? Is it comedies, situational?
Yeah, I don't think this will be a surprise. I mean, engagement follows the zeitgeist, right? So, tent poles, live events, the Oscars, the Olympics. We did an integration with NBC mm-hmm. this past Olympics, and engagement was pretty high. Right. So I don't think that we have anything different or special in that regard. I think people are engaging, and I think it follows what's popular, whether it's a news story or whether it's an incredible ending to the season of Homeland.
Yep. In a recent Variety article, I think it was about a month ago, you made a statement that we're blinded by the during. What do you mean by that, and kind of what does that mean for Facebook's kind of social TV strategy?
Yeah, when we sat down with Andrew at Variety, he was talking about dual screen viewing, watching TV while you're interacting with your device. And we see the opportunity much more broadly. When I'm back in LA and we're talking to networks and content producers, we see the opportunities before, during, and after an episode, and before, during, and after a season. So if you look at how people are engaging, and in fact, I think Nielsen just came out with a study that exorbitantly more and more people are engaging before a show, as well as during a show, and then even more so after a show.
Right.
So when you think about the opportunity, we don't necessarily need to focus on the during. And there seems to be a love affair with the idea that, how many people are engaging with my show, my content, while the show is happening. And we take a much broader view. And so the statement was made to kind of suggest that you have this opportunity to engage people from the beginning of your marketing cycle and then long after. And I think that was showcased this past year. We worked with TNT in Dallas. Dallas, obviously an amazing show back in the 80s and 90s, and they did the strategy. They 5 months before created a bunch of content on the platform, kept people engaged through the season, and then kept it going throughout the off season. Now they're gearing up for season 2. I think, which is kind of a good segue into this slide. And what I love about this slide is that it has nothing to do with Facebook. It actually has to do with life. So you have, when you're in a relationship, you have love and you have time. And the way you increase love over time is by doing a lot of lightweight interactions. For those of you in relationships, if you don't take out the trash, or you don't do the dishes, or you don't text your significant other, I love you, you're kind of screwed. Right. When it comes time to do the birthday, or do Mother's Day, or do the big events that occur. And so the idea here is that if you can keep people engaged through lightweight interactions over time, when it comes time to tell them to tune in or enter a contest or buy a branded stocking for your mantle in your home, people are more inclined to do so because you've earned that trust. Just like in life, someone will go out on a date with you if you've done the little things to get them to go out. So. This is kind of a metaphor for life, and we think it's a metaphor for Facebook and how television networks and content producers can really get people to engage and then ultimately watch their shows. Yep.
Yeah, marriage is all about debits and credits. Got to build up those debits. The other thing in the press, there seems to have been in the press, in particular the fourth quarter of last year, a lot of press about kind of the algorithm changes made on Facebook, and kind of some criticisms from some brands about how their brands weren't getting the same lift they used to get on Facebook because of the algorithm changes. Anything you can talk about that, kind of like specifically how the brands were impacted, and then I guess for the entertainment industry?
It's a great question. I think that generally people don't like change, and so when something changes and it impacts their business, there's a reaction to it. And I think what's most interesting about what's occurring is that people are focused on the science. They're focused on, well, what's made up the algorithm? Why is my content not getting the same reach if it's not getting the same reach? Or, what has changed to give me more reach? And I actually think, or we actually believe the conversation should shift to the art. And what's exciting for me is that you guys in the room have a disproportionate advantage over any other brand because you're the best creators of content in the world. And if you do that right, then the algorithm change goes away. And the idea of using behind the scenes video or production stills, I think we're moving into a world where there needs to be a little bit more of a strategy behind the content you put on the platform. Because I think you need to keep in mind that your content is competing with a picture of my daughter, right? And that's, I think, sometimes lost in the idea of marketing television on Facebook. And if you can create content that people want to engage with, people will share it. At the end of the day, users are the final judge and jury of what is social. And I think taking a little bit more time to craft the content that goes out will dissipate any algorithm change that has occurred.
And with that, with the algorithm changes, kind of the creative content, how many souls has Dexter taken, for fans and things like that. But how is paid media, how have networks used paid media on Facebook to really build out a brand and build out an audience for a show? I know the Dallas was one example, but what's another way they use paid media?
So part of my job is to kind of work with networks on figuring out their strategy, and that strategy is a mix of a variety of different things. And depending on the show, depending on the network, depending on what their business objective is, we try to take an approach of, what's the best approach for the user? And, sometimes that doesn't involve media, but often cases it does. And, sometimes that media is about reach and frequency, carpet bombing the graph and getting people to let them know that something is happening about your show. And other times it's more crafted and more specific to users through sponsored stories and newsfeed, whether it be on desktop or mobile. Yep. So, I don't think there's, any one way we think about it. We're not going in there with our head down, horns out, spend money. Right. We actually take a little bit more strategic approach and, try to cater to the need. And sometimes that's all about creative and content, and sometimes we layer in media. So I think it's about paid, owned, and earned, and hitting the right person at the right time with the right strategy, and media is important.
Yep. And, with the focus on coincident viewing, a lot of this is obviously happening on tablets, right? So talk about mobile. How is mobile fitting into the mix within your advertisers? Are you seeing the shift, and kind of where are we with that now?
Yeah. I joined the company 2 years ago, and we were a very desktop-centric company. And then, Mark one day says, "We're a mobile company." Right. And then we're like, okay. And now we've shifted. And everything that we do, whether it's through our technology or the way that we work with marketers, is thinking about mobile first. We have a joke that, the new rule of thumb is how people scroll with their phones, and the importance of creating compelling content has never been at a more of a premium. Yep. To get people, to get them to stop, to get them to engage. So, our recommendation to anyone is that think mobile first, whether it's you're building an application and you want to get people to enter your front door that way, yep, or whether it's using our native tools, how is that content going to display on the phone, and what is the experience once someone decides to click to consume it, like, comment, or share upon it. So mobile, absolutely should be part of your strategy, and you should be thinking that way first.
Yep. With mobile advertising, it seems like one of the most common criticisms you hear is, you can't measure the ROI, there's no ROI, and even sometimes when it comes to Facebook. And so I guess, what are you guys doing to kind of help advertisers better measure the ROI of the ad spend on Facebook, and kind of where are you in that whole evolution?
It's a great question. I think that, anyone sitting in the seat from any platform would, hope that we would have better tools and better analytics. I think it's a really hard question to answer. I can't get into too deep because we're in a quiet period, yeah, but I can say that, every day we're out there trying to work more closely with our partners, with third parties to kind of figure out, what's the return on that investment. Yeah. And so, it's a fun question to tackle. It's a fun problem, right, to tackle, and not an easy one. So we're trying, yep, every day.
Yep. Moving beyond the likes,
yes,
and dollars per like.
That's correct.
Yeah. You have another slide?
I do. So I think this kind of is meant to talk about the larger opportunity again. Real-time viewing is an important part of the solution. But when we make the statement that Facebook is the ultimate second screen experience, it's not focused on when someone tunes in, what are they picking up and what are they interacting with. The ultimate second screen experience is something that's always available, and being able to engage with that consumer at any time. And the more and more people engage, and the more people decide to use Facebook to communicate with their friends, we think Facebook's in a good position to enable producers and networks to drive that conversation regardless of whether your show is on air, yep, in season or out. Yep. So that's kind of what the idea behind the slide is. And again, it's crafted a little provocatively, right, because there's a lot of great companies out there doing amazing work, yep, in the dual screen experience. Yep. But we try to take a more broad approach.
Yep. As we've heard, Mark Cuban today, and then also even YouTube say earlier how important social is becoming, and really, getting your brand out there, getting your content out there, and building an audience around in that way. So if you were a producer of content, or a network, what would be your advice for what's the strategy? What's the best way to use Facebook at this point to really grow that audience and grow that brand?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I could wave a magic wand and become a CMO or a showrunner, I think I'll answer it as obnoxiously as I possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
I would think about potentially reorganizing or rethinking the way that I market a show. The resources that I have against the content that's produced, the money that I spend in media. The general consensus is that 3 weeks prior to the launch of a show, we're going to pump the system with a bunch of content, with a bunch of awareness. We're going to use our own channels. We're going to do a lot of print and billboard, and we're going to do a lot of media. And then the show launches, and then we go away. Mm-hmm. And that sometimes works. Either it rates, and we've done our job,
right,
or it doesn't rate and go, I don't want anything to do with that. Mm-hmm. So we think there's an interesting opportunity to kind of extend that cadence and extend the strategy so that when a show is greenlit or you're getting into the part of when content is starting to be created, when can you first launch that page? When can you start to drive awareness to that page and get people engaged and have them take ownership of it? Yep. So that's kind of how I would approach it if I ruled the world, so to speak. And if I were a content producer, I would think about how do I develop, how do I budget, and how do I produce for social? How do I take my shiny object that's ultimately going to be on TV, and what is my social strategy around that content to deliver a really good experience? Typically, a show is delivered to a network and they extract assets and put them on the graph. If I were a producer, I would want to take more control over that and deliver the assets to the network and be more in control of that. That's what I would do.
Keep it also more of a lifetime relationship. So even throughout the season, keep all the Facebook ad spots and everything else going.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. All right. Well, Howard, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks.